KETP letter to the Director General of Gambia Public Procurement Authority dated the 18th of July 2022. Please let me know when you find it, or if you need assistance finding it.
I think I need assistance because second. Yes, I have seen it.
You've seen it? Okay. Now, they have said that as per their submission and subsequent approval to open tender for the construction of the municipal library, we herein officially inform your office that bids were received and opened accordingly. The evaluation of bids was done in accordance with the evaluation criteria set forth in the tender document. The committee is pleased to inform your office that Bejam Enterprise Limited is found to be the only responsive bidder for the construction of municipal library. We therefore submit the documentations and look forward to your approval for the award of the contract to the aforementioned supplier. Now, yesterday we talked about how we haven't seen anything in respect of the bid security. As in, we've seen that they've ticked on their evaluation form that bid security was provided, but there's no amount stated for the bid security. So in such a circumstance where they've written to you for approval, would you ask for this information?
If it is not provided at all, we ask. But a submission is a package, yes, and we search within the package and see if it is provided. Sometimes it will be within the package and not mentioned in the write-up. And in this case, yesterday from here I made confirmation, because after our review, bids will be returned to them. So I called to make clarifications, and they were able to confirm that the submission by Bajam was with a bid security, which I told them to provide a copy, and this is the copy of the bid security.
So, Assistant Registrar, can you provide that? And who provided this?
From KMC.
Yes, may I be guided, Council?
He made some confirmation with KMC about the bid security for Bejam Enterprise Limited for the municipal library, and they have provided something. So that's what he's handed over, and I'm just looking at it. I'll hand it to the chair.
Kindly give the registrar to photocopy, and let me have a copy. And yes, whilst you are looking at that, let me ask Mr. Sanyang one or two questions. Mr. Sanyang, if you look at the letter that we are treating, that is the one dated the 18th of July. Can you please go to that letter? The one written by KEPT.
Yes.
Yes. I just want to be clear whether the tender for procurement of construction of the municipal library, is it a supplier that does it, or a service provider that provides the service?
That does what?
Because the reason why I'm asking is that there is no correlation between the heading and the last paragraph, where they said, we therefore submit the documentations and look forward to your approval for award of the contract to the aforementioned supplier. Is this Bajam, is it a supplier?
It's a contractor.
Yes. So there is inconsistency.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Chairperson, I would get the registrar to hand you the document just so you can look at it. Mr. Sanya, are you able to leave these? This is an original copy, is it?
Yes, supposed to be an original.
So are you able to leave it with the commission, or do you need to take it back?
Sorry, Council, this is not an original copy. This is a photocopy.
There's signed copies. Well, at least it appears to be original copies at the back. The letter from Trust Bank, so maybe just check and confirm. Because it's possible my glasses are failing me.
Well,
It's a copy? Let me just check. Is this a scanned copy, a colored scan, or is it an original?
I assume it's a scanned colored copy, but it's not original.
Yeah, my glasses are failing me. So it's a scanned copy?
I assume it's an original copy. Well, unless we clarify from them, but for me, I assume it is the original.
It looks like a color scan, because this is supposed to be the binding for document. Anyway, are you able to leave this document here?
Well, yes, I'll leave it and take note, because for them, some of these documents, is it possible to make a photocopy?
Or, yes. So that's why I'm asking. You can have a copy of it afterwards,
Okay.
unless you actually need this particular copy.
So what we do at this point, let him cross-check whether this is the original copy. If it is not the original, if it is a scanned original copy, let them say so, and they can certify it. Because we are supposed to admit this document before we can treat it. So you can take note and get back to them.
Okay.
Because we believe that it's a scanned, colored, photocopied column. Original, they should.
We rely on the bid security amount written on the letter.
Yes, that's what
Because
I'm
this
asking.
is
Do
the
you know what the bid security amount? The 20th of July, 2022. And you said that your request for approval for the award of this contract to Bejam Enterprise Limited at $34,916,955 is, as for the recommendations of your contracts committee, is hereby approved, subject to the powers bestowed on the said committee by section 47(3) and 49(a), (b), (d), and (f) of the GPPA Amendment Act. Now, in the event that it is discovered that the bid security amount is less than 2% of the 34,916,000, would it be right to award the contract to them?
No.
Okay. I know that in this letter you didn't remind them to notify the other. Oh, there's only one bit. That's right. So let me refer you to their letter dated August 2022, where they're forwarding the contract document to your office.
Yes, 22nd August,
Okay.
2022.
And they have said that it is an honor to submit the contract document signed between Canopy Environmental Transformation Program, KETP, and Bejam Enterprises Limited for the construction of municipal library worth $32 million for a period of 12 months. Please find attached the contract document for your perusal. So the approval was for the $35,916,955. And here they're telling you that the contract amount is $32 million. Are you in a position to tell whether they had negotiated the price or it might be an error? Are you with me?
Yes, yes. The letter I was looking at was the wrong one because they all dated 22nd, but then I have seen this other one,
Okay.
which indicated the 32 million for a period of 12 months.
So do you know why the discrepancy in the amount?
I'm not sure, but I think they went in for negotiation, but as such, a negotiation report should have been submitted also.
Okay, so when they negotiate, they send you a negotiation report.
Yes, when the law requires that when negotiation takes place, there are procedures and minutes must be generated. So normally, the minutes of the negotiation should also have been provided.
Okay. So are you able to find out what happened in that regard? So the contract is attached to, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, the contract is attached.
Okay. And the contract says, whereas Canifing Municipal Council, hereinafter the procuring organization, is desirous that Bejam Enterprises Limited, hereinafter the contractor, execute construction of the Canifing Municipal Council Library, hereinafter the works, and the procuring organization accepted the bid by the contractor for the execution and completion of such works. Now, in this instance, it appears that it is Canifing Municipal Council itself that is entering into the contract with the contractor, whereas the file that we looked at yesterday, it was the KATP project that entered into the contract with the supplier. And you were going to provide the documents in respect of the project. Were you able to get those?
Yes, I was able to get some of them, but when I was calling, I observed that they are not completed.
Okay,
this was shortly before I left.
Okay, we'll get those from the registrar in a little bit. Yes?
Sorry. Normally in the contract document, is it not usual that if the parties negotiate, they will indicate it in the contract document that the bid price was negotiated and this is what is arrived at?
I think when you use normally, it means that there is a fixed format for writing things like that. But then I don't think they have a fixed format. Or even at GPPA, we don't have any fixed sort of format as to how a report should be written.
No, it's not report. It's the contract, I mean. You know, because before they sign the contract, they must have concluded negotiations,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. I said, because I have seen in some of the contracts that they have indicated that they negotiated the price in the contract. That is why I'm asking.
I don't think we have any sort of provisions to ensure that even negotiations take place. The procedures and other things must be indicated. If we request for reports, negotiation reports, but then when final figures are arrived at, the contract will capture that.
The contract would highlight it. Remember, what is contained in the bid might be at variance with what will be contained in the contract document. And that is why Council asks you what is the discrepancy, why the discrepancy in the price. So that is why I'm asking whether to confirm that negotiations were done, whether it is not usual, whether it is usual for them to capture it in the final contract, because they are the ones that are signing the contract, not you.
then if it is at their level, I cannot answer that question for them.
I said, would it not be usual or appropriate for them to reflect it in the
negotiation report to show those involved in the negotiation how it took place and the final agreement, and they all append their signature to show that, and the final figure arrived at must also be indicated.
But as an authority, would you appreciate if they reflect the fact that they negotiated the price downwards, for instance?
If it is indicated, I don't think it will have any negative impact
that is
on
what I'm
the
saying.
final output. But if it is also indicated on a separate report attached, which I confirm, fine with that.
Thank you. Council, you may proceed.
Thank you. I refer you to Article 15 of the agreement.
Come again?
Article 15 of the contract. The amount stated in item 14 of the contract data sheet, after the contractor has A, provided the procuring organization with a bank guarantee in the full amount of the advance payment and in the form provided in the bid documents. The contractor is to use the advance payment only to pay for equipment, materials, and other expenses required specifically for carrying out the works. The contractor shall demonstrate that the advance payment had deducting proportionate amounts from payments otherwise due to the contractor. Is 30% of the contract price. Offer an advance payment of 30%.
Cannot remember.
Procurement would be in that file. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, do you also know if the contractor provided?
I don't know whether that was provided. And
is this something that they sent to you or that you asked for to verify?
We should have been notified.
Now, I refer you to Articles security in the amount specified in the contract data sheet. The performance security shall be payable to the procuring. Performance security shall be discharged by the obligations under the contract, including warranty obligations. The performance security shall be issued in the form enclosed to these bid documents.
As a technician, is it a requirement? Performance, do you have to also attach performance security?
The contracts committee.
Okay. So it's not in all bids.
Procurement that will require whether a performance security is required or not.
If just going is all about, but
correct.
Performance security should not request.
Very important. But then what I am saying is that because if you look at the provisions of the Act, where the powers for taking may decide not to request for performance security.
But this is always provided for in the bid security, right? Document.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Council, you may proceed.
So there's provision for performance security, I think to 86, provide for performance security. So by the bidding documents, the successful bidder shall submit the performance guarantee within the time stated following the date of the notification of acceptance of the bid. And guarantees, surety bonds, standby letters of credit, banker's draft, cash deposits, promise. Where the performance security takes the form of an independent guarantee or standby letter, the amount shall be set at an estimated by a procuring organization.
Meaning,
if required, yes.
If required, meaning
yes.
There may be instances where this may not be required.
Yes.
If required.
Right, it is mandated.
It is mandatory.
Okay. But then it has highlighted on the sub. Not so?
Is it for me?
Pardon?
Is that question for me?
No, I'm just saying that it has provided the circumstances under which
Yes.
So, and in this contract, it says within 30 days of the date of the contract. And if you look at the contract data sheet, item tied in the bid documents. Now, do you know whether a performance guarantee of 10% of the contract sum was ever provided? On the contract data sheet, it is item 12.
12. The contractor shall submit for the project. Article 12 on the contract document.
No, Article 17 on the contract document.
Article 7.
And item 12 on the contract data sheet.
Article
Is it?
17, okay.
Yes.
Amount 10% of the contract sum form.
Contract signature. Now, the Article 17 itself, 17.1, says that within 30 days of the date of the contract, the contractor shall furnish the procuring organization a performance security in the amount termination of the contract and forfeiture of the contractor's bid security. Now, do you know whether
We should be notified because if an institution is to terminate any contract, we are also notified that they want to terminate a contract and all conditions, the reasons why termination will be. But in this case, we are not communicated to that effect. And I think, yes, we are the authority and we should be responsible, but then the contract management is entirely in the hands of the contracts committee. So these are obligations that are clearly on black and white, and they should ensure that the contract is executed as per the agreement on the contract. If not, the necessary actions must be taken and GPPA be provided with that information.
Yes. Before you proceed, I just want clarification. Why the amount was reduced from 34 to 32 million?
No.
You did not receive any
We do,
documentation?
no.
And there is no reason proffered to you as an authority?
No.
All right. And according to what Council has asked, the bid security should be 20%. Can you kindly...
Bid security.
No, performance security,
Performance
sorry.
security.
Should be 20%.
No, 10%.
10%. Can you calculate 10% of... because if we should... can you please calculate what is supposed to be the bid performance security?
$3,200,000.
And that is the guarantee that they should provide?
Yes.
As specified in the regulation?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
In the regulation and in the contract.
In the contract. Okay. Thank you.
Now,
please help us find out whether they provided that 3.2 million.
Okay.
Thank you. You can proceed, Council.
yes, I'm just waiting for him to finish noting it down.
Okay.
So on the last page of the contract, you have the signatories. It is said to be signed by Canifing Municipal Council and by Bejam Enterprises Limited. Can you tell us the date of signature?
17/8/2022 for the witness, and wrote 17th of August 2022. And for the contractor, also a date is not written, but the contractor's witness dated 17th of the same month, that is August 2022.
So let me just refer you to Article 4 before I ask a further question. Article 4 of the contract which deals with the duration of the contract, it says that the present contract shall come into force.
Article 4.
Article 4.
Article 4 is on the second page.
Duration of the contract.
Yes.
Yes.
So it says that the present contract shall come into force as from the date of its signature by both parties, and 2023 now, almost a year to the date. Do you know whether this contract was executed, as in whether it was performed? Do you know whether the municipal library was constructed?
We can verify.
Okay, please do that. Chairperson.
Just a minute.
Okay, whilst you check.
Yes.
Mr. Sanya, there's also another contract, I believe, that was sent to, that's part of this file,
Yes.
but it does not appear that there are, you can confirm, and there's a letter dated is the other letter dated 22nd of August 2022 to your office, where they're saying that it is an honor to submit the contract document signed between Canifing Environmental Transfer Analysis for a period of 6 months. Have you seen that?
Yes.
And the contract says that it's between Canifing Environmental Transformation Program, KETP project. It doesn't say who is represented by. Okay, represented by the project manager. And Mediamatic, represented by Mr. Haruna Drame, CEO. And it says the contract follows tender procedure, procurement of equipment and installation, Canifing Municipal Radio Station, KETP/ATM/RT/K003/2022, and the supplier's offer dated 20th June 2020. Article 1, that the supplier shall supply the following items as defined in the attached bid. Are there any bids in respect of this contract in that file?
Well, throughout this submission, I have not come across anywhere where a request for this particular contract was mentioned until this final request contract. And even on our minutes, what we said was to verify if the contract, yes, GPPA minutes it.
So can you find out whether anybody actually followed up with on those minutes and found out about the contract?
Mr. Saya?
Yes.
Can you please tell us why the authority has to intervene in some of these projects that have been labeled as projects funded by these organizations as regulate the activities of the procurement, when it is not funds that are provided for by KMC?
Why GPPA tries to intervene?
Yes.
Now,
by the donors from KMC? Because for you to have the legitimate role to intervene, there must be some form of counterpart funding. There must be some documentation to see, you understand, where you are participating as a public institution, which will allow you to have the authority to regulate their activities. Can you please help us find out whether you have that documentation?
I have to make reference to the agreement between the two parties.
Okay. So please avail us with that. so that we can have an idea of what has transpired. Yes, Council. I think that was the last contract that I have seen in the documents.
Yes.
That does not have any supporting documents whatsoever.
Yes.
And we will want to find out whether this 1.2 million that was expended by KMC, whether delivery was made to that effect, whether for goods or for services, because we've not seen any document.
Now go through some files with the witness.
So we will probably be dealing with the files 1 of 22. I will ask the registrar to give you the file shortly. It has to do with the procurement of LED lights.
Before you proceed, Mr. Sanya, we will come back to the project when you provide us with the documents. We might come back to this document.
Okay.
This file of KMC 6 of 2022. Thank you.
Yes, so it has to do with the procurement of LED lights. I think
like that, but
yes.
like I always emphasize, we have over 200 procuring organizations. On a daily basis, we receive so many transactions, and some of them we can remember, but sometimes it becomes very difficult to relate what had happened until we make reference
That's true. So
to the documentation.
Yes, so the file will be with you shortly. It has to do with the procurement of about 348 LED lights for Banjul City Council. Yes, so that is the file. It's 1 of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good. Now, the project with respect to that file has to do with the procurement of, as I said earlier on, 348 LED lights for the city of Banjul. Do you see that?
Yes, yes.
Yes, so basically, some of the issues that I will want us to discuss is the reporting forms, probably, and the choice of procurement method by the procurement authority, which is BCC, for 30 LED lights. So now, with respect to this project, what can you tell us briefly before I ask specific questions in relation to this particular procurement?
Basically, according to the submission to the authority, is a request for a procurement method and also to embark on a project to provide.
Now, this was as a result of BCC being given subvention of about $2 million.
Correct.
And so they wanted to use part of the funds to actually produce street lights for the area council. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, there is the letter for on the 4th of March 2022, wherein BCC sent to GPA requesting for approval to procure lights from Senegal. Because as far as they are concerned, the kind of specifications that they wanted were not available in the Gambia. So if you see the letter of the 4th March 2022, the request was sent to your office for approval with respect to the sample from Banjul. And in that letter, probably they were trying to outline that it is as a result of the relationship between the mayor of, or the mayor of Dakar and the mayoress of Banjul that kind of provided that link to produce these letters. So you have responded on the 17th of March 2022, and you have clearly declined to approve the purchase of these lights from Senegal. The reason being that there was no procurement method and no Form 100 and no Form 012. Now, what I want to ask you is, if a PO or procurement organization wants to procure from, or let's say, outside the country, what is the most appropriate method to use, generally?
And these two things will determine the procurement method that an institution can use, because all the conditions for the application of each procurement method are clearly defined in the Act and regulations.
So if one is to decide to procure from outside the country, what now would now be the most appropriate procurement method?
Requirements for the application of single source. And of course, if you want, we go over the requirements and explain to you how a procurement outside can meet those requirements. It can be open, international.
Can you give us an example? Can you give us an example as to how it can qualify as a single source?
Council, one condition for the application of single source is when only one supplier, only one, you can single source.
So in this particular case, the reason for the decline of this particular procurement method, which initially they wanted to procure through single source, initially because of the relationship between the mayor of Dakar and the mayoress of Banjul alone. That is the only reason that was given to your office at the time. And then so would that be an adequate reason for the use of single source?
I'm quite convinced that that is one of the reasons why approval was not given, because if you look at the conditions for the application of single source, the justification forwarded by Banjul City Council at that moment is not in line with any of the conditions for the application of single source.
Line to approve the request based on your letter of the 17th of March. Now, they had a meeting wherein the council decided that they will go on a trial procedure, wherein they will now procure 30 LED lights from Dakar through this same connection, the mayor of Dakar, and you will see that you will find probably on the saying that. The question is there, do they have a discretion to conduct trial unanimously without seeking approval? Because still, in my understanding, it still falls under procurement. Yes. Whatever they do, whether they call it trial purposes or whether they are purchasing the entire package of goods that they need, or whether they are only taking some number of it, it still amounts to procuring of goods. Now, is there anything that gives any procurement organization the discretion? Now, is there anything that gives any procurement organization the discretion to purchase a certain amount of goods in the name of conducting trial? In this case, it involves 30 LED lights from Senegal through the same relationship, like I indicated earlier on, and the idea is that will now amount to a trial to kind of see whether it will fit for the purpose.
Council, according to the Act, no procuring organization shall engage in any procurement of such amount as may be prescribed in the Act without passing through the authority at every single stage of the procurement proceedings. So, as such, the answer is no. They should have come to the authority for approval before proceeding with such an exercise.
Now, just for the record, you will see that the name of the company in Senegal is One Tuba Daru Rahman in Dakar, which they said was identified by the mayoress. Now, in your letter, in declining to approve the use of single sourcing at the value of 4,700,000, which I said was on the 30th of March 2022, you had recommended for restricted tendering in that letter, 30th March 2022. Your organization recommended that instead of using single sourcing, they should follow the restricted tendering process or method of procurement. My question is, why the recommendation for restricted tendering as opposed to open tendering?
Council, the difference between a restricted tender and open tender is only the advertisement. For open tender, it should be advertised or publicized openly for all potential suppliers to compete. In a restricted tender, certain potential suppliers will be identified and then they are targeted. So here, I think the reason why the authority advised for them to use restricted tender is because they are insisting to single source. And the reason why they wanted to single source is probably they feel that that is the best option for them. But the law requires that procurements be subjected to some form of competition, and if possible, open competition for that matter, which is the default method. But you can observe that for restricted tender, at least, there is an element of competition opening up, as opposed to the single source procurement that was identified by them.
But my point here, please proceed.
Yes, Mr. Sanyang, if you, I just want clarification on the issue of who does the selection in the restricted tender, because you said the restricted tender, the difference between restricted and open is the advertisement. So if you direct that a PO should adopt the restricted tender method of procurement, who selects the restricted bidders?
Is the PO, procuring organization. Yes. It's the responsibility of the contracts committee.
Yes. So now, if you give the PO the authority to use restricted tender, would there be no possibility of the PO selecting his choice or his candidate for the works or for the supply of goods, and then just collect other names just to meet your requirement, whilst in actual sense you've stopped him from single sourcing, but he's doing the same thing on the restricted tender, because he can decide to call Mr. Sanyang, who he wants to give the tender to, and call Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z, who don't have the capacity to do so. So you are just telling them you are just changing the nomenclature, but you are actually giving them the same authorization as single sourcing. Because that is my perception.
Actually, if I can take it off from where you started, yes. And the answer is yes, there is a possibility.
Yes.
There can be a possibility. However, for restricted tender, you must pre-qualify. And the pre-qualifications should also follow due process. And at the end of the
what provision of the law that says restricted tender, you must, as a requirement? Is it mandatory or discretionary?
For restricted tender?
Yes, the pre-qualification, is it mandatory or discretionary?
Now, if you look at the reporting form 002.
No, just answer me. Is it mandatory or discretionary in the pre-qualification for restricted tender?
Pre-qualification is mandatory because you have to explain how the few suppliers that you have identified, how did you arrive at selecting those few?
Yes, let's look at the law. Please, and thank you.
No, I'm trying to see where exactly.
Okay. Can we be guided, Council? I think it's section 23, right? Pre-qualification proceedings.
Section
23
of the Act.
Can we? Yes. I may be wrong.
Yes, 23, pre-qualification procedures.
Is that the correct section?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
No. So that we know what we are saying correct. Whether this is in direct reference to the issues of using the restricted tender as a procedure of procurement.
I think it starts at section 22, which is qualification of bidders.
Yes,
And
section
sub 1 says that the principles and rules in this section apply to the determination by procuring organizations of the qualifications of a bidder at all stages of the procurement proceedings, including pre-qualification proceedings. So it goes on about what needs to be done.
that it applies to all stages of
Yes.
the bidding process.
Yes.
Noting that we have different... What I'm saying is, yes, all stages of bidding processes.
Okay.
But
So it's not
have
peculiar to restricted tender alone.
Yes, like single source and so on. Apart from open tender, you have other procurement methods, but
let's limit ourselves to the issues of restricted tender, and that is why I wanted us to refer to the law to see where it has provided for mandatorily for you to do restricted tender, you must do pre-qualification, as you said. So we've looked at the law, and it might be safe to assume that it is pre-qualification is for all stages of the procurement process.
Of restricted tender.
Where is that stated?
You mentioned all stages of all procurements. I mentioned about open tender. You said we limit ourselves to restricted tender.
Yes, okay. Now, let's check the law and see where it has clearly stated that if you are using the restricted method, you must do pre-qualification.
And that can be applicable with Section 22.
Sub what?
Section 22, qualification of bidders.
Yes. Is this sub 1 or sub 2?
Sub 1.
Please read.
The principles and rules in this section apply to the determination by procuring organizations of the qualifications of a bidder at all stages of the procurement proceedings, including pre-qualification proceedings.
Okay. What is your understanding or interpretation of that section?
That to determine whether a supplier is qualified for consideration to compete in procurements other than open tender, because for open tender, any potential supplier is free to compete. But for the other procurement methods, it may require you, or one, selecting.
But Mr. Sanyang, I don't see the exclusion of open tender in subsection 1 of section 22. I did not see the exclusion of open tender there.
It may not be mentioned openly, but open tender is open to anybody, so it's not, there is no need to pre-qualify. When anybody, any potential supplier who feels like competing can compete. So in this case, I don't think there is a need to pre-qualify. If you pre-qualify, then you are eliminating the ones that you think cannot compete.
Well, we will take your interpretation of the provision as you has given, as you explained. But we note your interpretation.
Thank you.
Council, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Now, my concern is, so apparently the authority, that's GPPA, kind of recommended for restricted tendering before even the procuring organization asking for same, seeking for approval for that method of procurement. Now, that's why I want to understand why that is the case. You have said the reason probably is maybe they were insisting on single sourcing, which may suggest that they have a targeted supplier. But is it not the case generally wherein one PO wants to focus on one form of method to seek approval for that particular method of procurement and establish grounds as to why that would probably be the best in a given circumstance?
Actually, Council, if I may refer you to our letter,
yes,
the last paragraph indicates that the authority advise as opposed to recommend or directing the PO to use a particular procurement method.
Yes.
So based on their request, initially to use single source, we advise them. We advise them.
You know, when you say you have advised them, in this instance, I don't think they have the freedom, because remember, they only write to GPPA because they need to seek approval. Is that not the case?
Yes, but if you look at the powers of a contracts committee,
yes.
The powers of a contracts committee, they are very powerful.
Absolutely.
To make their own procurement-related decisions.
Yes.
That is why here, technically, we can suggest to them, like in this case.
Mr. Sanyang, in as much as you always refer us to the fact that the law has given the contracts committee powers, but remember, those powers are subject to your approval, because when you deny to approve what they have recommended, you understand, and you base it on law, they don't have a choice. So their powerfulness is subject to their absolute compliance of your regulations and your law. Is that not correct?
Yeah, but when somebody suggests to you, when a suggestion is made, it's different from when a directive is made.
So, just like the chairperson was saying, you know, it can likely be an issue of semantics. When, or like, choice of words when you decide to use advice as opposed to compelling or directing. Ideally, you don't even use the word that you are mandating them to follow a particular procurement method. But the rules or the laws are such that for a procuring organization, no matter how powerful they are in relation to deciding what procurement method they want to use, it still has to be justifiable. Is it not?
Correct.
And the institution that is supposed to determine whether a particular procurement method is justifiable is the GPPA. So no matter what form they decide to use, if you still feel as an authority that a particular procurement method is not justifiable, you have the mandate to refuse to accept or grant approval. Is that not the case? Correct. So we have seen that in numerous communications between GPPA and procurement organizations refusing approval, even though the procurement authority will want to insist on a particular method. Even in this one, when they decided that they want to use single sourcing through the mayoress's connection or relationship with the mayor of Dakar, you said no, you are not going to grant approval for single sourcing. So no matter how powerful they are, the overall authority lies with the procurement authority. Is that not the case?
Correct.
Exactly. So that is why I said, even if you use the word advice or any other word, these are just semantics, they are just choice of words. But the idea remains the same. Approval is sought by the procurement organization and is either granted or denied or refused by the authority. Is that the case we have here? Is that the case, sir?
Correct, yes.
Please, and please use the microphone.
Through the mic.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, so that when you said you advised them to use a particular procurement method, in this case, restricted tendering, you are in essence saying that that would probably be the best form as far as you're concerned.
Yes.
And so, my question now is, it appears as if you are kind of, there is really more or less like a special relationship between the individual or the authority granting this application, because if you look at the timelines, you will see that you had given them through the letter of the 17th BC letter to GPA, they requested for approval for a particular method which you have already recommended. You understand? In March. So 30th March 2022, in your letter rejecting single sourcing, you had already recommended for a particular method which is restricted tendering. So then they subsequently now wrote to request for approval for that particular method. So my question now is it not a case of putting the cart before the horse, wherein the authority or the organization should have requested and provided as to evidence as to why this particular method of procurement is the best as opposed to open tendering? Normally.
Actually, like I said earlier, here they're trying to justify for the use of single source.
Yes.
That is what they're trying to.
Yes.
When we look at the submission, we feel that the single source procurement based on their justification is not justifiable in this case. And given the submission and some of the conditions that they are putting forward, we feel that there must be other people or other suppliers who most likely have the potentials to fulfill their requirements. Hence, single source cannot be acceptable. But then, since their justification is for single source, the few that we feel are in the market, of course, when I talk about few here, it comes back to the same justification for open tender, that you may not be able to justify the few, but then based on what they are saying, we feel that suppliers are not in that area, are not that many, so that they try to engage as many as possible, so that there will be an at least element of competition among them.
My issue is that will only be justifiable when initially they come up with the argument that they do not have, they only have few pre-qualified, as you have said, or few suppliers that are known to them in this area. But as opposed to that, the best form probably would be to have an open tender. Even if the need be to have an open international tender, for example, if they feel that the supplier is in Dakar or maybe outside the Gambia.
Council, you are right, because it's always indicated that open tender is the default method, unless otherwise, i.e. when it is thought that other conditions for the application of any of those procurement methods are fulfilled. But otherwise, even tenderless should have been open tender.
Now, let's come back to the main issue regarding the contracts committee agreeing, even though some dissented, but agreeing to spend public funds to purchase 30 LED lights. I mean, these LED lights are costing, as far as the specifications are concerned, about $11,000 to $13,000. So you purchase 30 of them just for trial purposes, without following any process of procurement, without getting approval from GPPA, unless there is approval, which I have not seen in the file. What are the implications of that?
Council, the practice is completely wrong. According to the Act, no procuring organization shall use any money in the name of public funds of a certain threshold without coming to the authority at every stage of the procurement. So if this particular procurement was not subjected to the authorities' approval, then it is completely wrong.
And what would be the possible implications? We have discussed this when we were discussing the post-reviews reports, where you have implications of using a particular method, in this case single sourcing, identifying a particular procurement method through the influence or relationship of, in this particular case, the mayor of Banjul and the mayor of Dakar. What would be the possible risk factors or the implications there?
The implications are many, including possible corrupt practices, fraud, and not having value for money, and so on. There are a lot of implications.
Yes. So, in this particular project, the file, can you check the file? Do you know whether the 348 LED lights were at any point procured?
Actually, no. From a discussion with some of the officials, according to them, they don't have enough money to buy all at once. So what they did is, or what they are doing is, buying them in pieces or in bits. And according to them, the project is on.
No, but this project itself, there is probably funding for the project. So I don't understand when you said that according to communications there's no money for the project, because apparently 2 million already was secured for the area council from government, from central government. Do you understand that? Yeah. And all these are part of the Ostender project as well, possibly. So they all have laid down fundings for most of these projects. So my point is, even assuming that there is no money for this project, but then if they have to be buying in pieces, should they not follow also as well as a certain method of procurement?
They should. Anyway.
Yes, Council, may I refer you of the GPPA requesting for approval for restricted tender. And if you look at that letter, it says the Banjul City Council has secured funding from the government, has intended to use part of the funds, I think they meant to say, for the procurement of street lights for the council. So in this circumstance, we are safe to assume that money was available,
yes,
for the execution of this project?
It was. In fact, they made these remarks in numerous letters. The letter from the 17th May 2022, highlighting the fact that they had received funding from government, about $2 million subvention, and in addition to that, they want to procure these lights. Is that not the case, Mr. Yang?
Yes, correct.
So, do you know the state of the project? But you have told us that, as far as you're concerned, you have been informed that these lights were being bought in piecemeal at some point.
Yes, according to what I got, there was no tendering to that effect. It was not even tendered.
Now we will continue with the procuring organization with respect to the state of the LED lights. How about the Crab Island project, the solar?
Yes, sorry. Before we proceed to the Crab Island project, can we look at the procurement? It's not dated. Okay, it is dated the 11th day of, I don't know which, but what the document is saying is GPPA form 012, declaration by member Banjul City Council. There is no reference. Then there is description, object, procurement of street lights, and they provided for the names of the parties that were present in that meeting. And these are Musa Bachili, that is the CEO, Omar BJ Toure. Can you take us through that document, please?
Yes. So,
because the reason why I ask you to do that is because at the back of that page it has said, it has listed the invited bidders, and they have listed particular.
Yes.
Can we please?
Do you see that document?
I have seen a document here, Procuring Organization Banjul City Council, and is GPPA Form 012, declaration by members of the Contrast Committee.
Yes.
Bid reference, nil, not indicated. Description of procurement object, procurement of street lights, with a table.
Yes.
And
take us through that.
Yes.
Since you have
the names on the table.
the names are as follows: Mustafa Bakili, Chief Executive Officer; Omar BJ Toure, Deputy Mayor; Momodu Kamara, Director of Finance; Cham, Councilor; Yusfa Jallo, Acting Director of Administration; Isa Hassan, Assistant Procurement Officer; Ablai Kurubali, Youth Councilor; Katim Toure, Director, Planning and Development; and MS Fatoumata Sise.
In that meeting, were there any invited individuals?
All those I'm seeing are all part of the council, but I can confirm that you have the Chief Executive Officer, you have the budget, the finance officer, who happens to be the custodians of funding, and you also have Isa Sow, who is the procurement officer. These are the supposed to be the key members of a contracts committee, and then all others can be co-opted when the need arises.
What is that meeting about?
Pardon? We, the above mentioned names, being members of the contracts committee constituted under Section 47 of the Gambia Public Procurement Authority Act 2014, do hereby state as follows. A, that we do not have any interest pecuniary of otherwise.
Yes.
Sorry, or otherwise, directly or indirectly in any of the consultants, firms, associations, or joint ventures that admitted bids for the above, that all knowledge, reports, or any other material not within the public domain which we may acquire from the evaluation process by virtue of the performance of my duties is member of the said contrast committee shall all for all processes be regarded by us as strictly confidential, and we shall not divulge them to persons not officially concerned with this evaluation process. That as a member of the contrast committee shall at all times adhere fully with the terms and conditions contained in the Gambia Public Procurement Authority Act 2014 and the Gambia Public Procurement Regulations 2003. That the breach of the determination.
No, the breach of this declaration.
Sorry, the breach of this declaration or any provisions at the Gambia Public Procurement shall not preclude initiation of the proceedings pursuant to any order law against me.
What is the last line?
The last line is for signature as indicated above by the said member or members of the contrast committee should be dated.
On that?
Pardon?
What is the date put on that? Is there any date or month?
No, it's not dated.
Okay. The next page.
This is the only page I have. It's a letter.
Well, can you take a look at this and see whether, because I got this from the file, whether this is not part of that letter, that minute? Can you confirm if you have that page in the file? Registrar, can I get my document? Please, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Council, I have a list similar to the one, but I want to confirm whether it's the same names that I have.
Please hand it over to you. Deputy Registrar, can you hand this to Council, please? These are the procurement forms for him to go through. Is that the same?
No, they are different. List of suppliers to be invited. So can I confirm that the write-up is the list of suppliers to be invited to bid for the procurement of street lights.
Yes.
Is it the same?
Can you list for me what is there?
What we have here is 1, general engineering, 2, Momodo Malado Jallo, 3, 4, EJ General Trading, 5, Nyamina Enterprise.
I have a different list which says number 1 KMF Technologies, number 2 Camera Trading, and number 3 Enterprise.
None of those names or suppliers or firms are indicated on this order list. That.
Okay. So, but what does that list say? At least they are referring to as the persons they identified under the restricted tender to bid for the street light project?
Yes, that is what the heading suggests. That is a list of suppliers to be invited to bid for the procurement of street lights.
So now, before before I hand you over to council, the issues contained in this some form of, I don't know whether it's contracts committee minutes or but based on your understanding, is this a contracts committee minutes
No,
pursuant to assessing bids?
This is a template already prepared, and as you can see, it is called Form 00012. It's a declaration by members of the contracts committee already prepared. It's a template. All what committee members are required to do is to sign, to agree or disagree on the content, what is contained on the declaration.
So in other words, what I want to be clear is that in this circumstance, these people did not meet to discuss the bid issues, but they just reproduced what was contained in Form 012. Is that correct assessment?
Not reproduced, but is the form itself.
Okay.
Is the form.
This is the form itself.
Exactly.
So now my question is, so does this qualify as the contracts committee meeting minutes?
No.
That is where I was going to. Thank you. Council, you may proceed.
Now, just to conclude on the issue regarding the LED lights. So, what is this for restricted tendering? Is it not market survey? What
yes,
will market survey?
Market survey should be conducted to determine those potential suppliers or contractors.
Exactly.
In the market.
Before you arrive at a number or list of individuals that will probably be qualified, or having the conclusion that these are the few people known to the POs, then you must have done a market survey. So that brings us back to the point that generally, like you said, open tender would be the default method, but unless you have conducted market surveys, you wouldn't know who are the known suppliers, those who actually have or possess a certain type of goods that you may need for a particular procurement. Is that not the case? Correct. Now, how do you determine that a procuring organization had conducted market surveys?
Now, the indication should be, apart from the minutes of the contracts committee, will be indicated in Form 002. That is the reporting form for restricted tendering. But as you rightly said, of course, that is just an indication.
Yes.
And it will also be indicated how the selected suppliers are identified.
Yes.
Here they are expected, or the authority is expected to be told the procedures taken to arrive at that list that they have already identified.
So now, the idea here is, if you can recall, your organization conducts two types of reviews. You have the post-review, which we have dealt with in addition to the compliance review reports that we have dealt with throughout. Is that not the case?
Correct.
And this happens normally at the end of every year, mostly regarding procurement activities that they have conducted over the years. Most documents that we're dealing with right now, that they need periodical approvals from GPA at every stage of the procuring of the procurement. Correct. Is that not the case? But then for market surveys, is a requirement, because then you would have already had your procurement plan for the year.
Correct.
So all these procurement activities being conducted generally should have been planned for. Is that not the case?
Correct.
And so therefore market surveys would have been conducted. That is why when your team goes to conduct post reviews, you always highlight that market surveys for a particular year is not being conducted.
Correct.
So is it not the case that market surveys is not just having specific market surveys for every procurement, like once you are about to engage into a particular procurement, then you go and conduct markets, but generally you conduct the market surveys in accordance or in line with the procurement plan for a particular year? Is that not the case?
It could be both, because at the end of the day you have to have an idea of certain things within the market, the allocation and so on, for you to be able to prepare a procurement plan.
Of course.
But again, when you are about to implement, you can also conduct a survey, sort of a market research, to determine the prices, of course, that you have even indicated initially on the plan, to verify whether they still remain.
Absolutely.
And so on and so forth.
But the second one will only be a matter of due diligence. But the first one, the prior market survey, is a requirement.
Correct.
That becomes the fundamental requirement based on the procurement plan. The subsequent market surveys would probably be as a matter of due diligence that you would be expected to conduct, but may not necessarily be a mandatory requirement.
Correct.
Yes. So that is why I am saying that for this particular procurement, BCC would have or should have already conducted a market survey to know as to whether the particular procurement method or particular goods to be procured are available in the market, and whether it is available generally, which will give rise to an open tender, or only a known or specific suppliers have this type of goods that they are seeking to purchase. Then they would have already known that they will now apply and request or seek approval for restricted tendering. Is that not the case?
Correct.
And not the other way around, having it been suggested to them by the authority that is supposed to approve it.
Correct, Councillor.
Yes. So, yes.
Mr. Sanya, if you look at the letter dated the 12th April 2022, from your office to Banjul City Council.
Okay.
On your reply for request for approval of restricted tender. Please let me just clarify this before we proceed.
Yes, yes,
Because
absolutely, yes.
It's dated 12th April 2022.
I think I...
Registrar, Deputy Registrar, kindly show... Take. You can put aside.
Yes, I have seen it.
You have seen it.
Yes.
Let me have my document.
12th April 2022.
In this letter, the authority listed all the issues that ought to be contained in the bidding document, right?
Yes.
But you take a look at the second page of the said letter, which advised that they should use open tender to allow for more participation by potential bidders to compete. And at the same time, your authority is advising them to use restricted tender. Did you see the conflict?
Yes.
Right? I just wanted to highlight that.
Yes, I have seen the conflict.
Okay, thank you. Council, you can proceed.
Now, another issue, lastly, for this particular procurement is the issue of shortening the bidding process. What normally gives rise to or qualifies a particular procurement organization to successfully seek for the shortening period, generally?
Now, the circumstances surrounding a procurement may require them requesting for the bidding period to be shortened.
Can you give an example of circumstances that may lead to the application and granting of shortening bidding processes?
For example, if
or periods?
The procuring organization is constrained with time for a bidding period of 30 days, that if that procedure is followed, maybe there will be delays and the like, then the period can be shortened.
All right. Now let's deal with the file.
Sorry, Mr. Sanyang, we have seen that consistently. They always request, particularly for KMC, they request to shorten the bidding time. And you can correct me if I am wrong, that these bidding periods are provided for by the legislation and the regulation.
Exactly.
So why is it that you have to indulge them all the time? You understand? Do you normally set a criteria to review the reasons, and you are convinced that the reasons they give are cogent enough for you to? Because I believe that the intention of the legislation is very clear.
Correct.
You understand? And your principle and your motto is for fairness, openness, and transparency.
Exactly. And in fact, the reason is why the bidding period should be 30 days is for the procuring organization to give ample time for suppliers to prepare a quality bidding document, so that all requirements will be met. But as you rightly said, yes, we don't have a criteria per se, and we don't create like any structure, a committee or the like, to determine whether the request for additional time in terms of bidding period should be granted or not. But again, we entirely depend on the reasons or the justifications that must be proffered in their submission.
But can you tell from the justifications we have seen so far, are they reasonable enough?
Well,
just give your opinion. You know, you are not speaking on behalf of the...
I do.
Yes. So you give your honest opinion.
Now, my honest opinion is, you know, sometimes judgment may be subjective in the sense that what
you just give your opinion. You are an expert. We don't have...
Now, some of the justifications could be genuine.
Yeah. But in this circumstance, most of the justifications you have seen in the facts, are they genuine? If you are to put them under consideration?
Actually,
bearing in mind that you are not the one that reviewed most of these documents.
Actually, maybe because of the sittings and the like, we can pay a lot of attention to it, but then actually most of them are not genuine.
Thank you. Council, you may proceed.
Yes, I brought that up fundamentally because I also detected the fact that in most instances, when they apply for this either open tender or most of the time restricted tendering, they always subsequently will apply for shortening the bidding process. And the same, you have said KMC, the same with Banjul as well. So if you look at one of the reasons on the letter dated the 31st day of May 2022, I had wanted to wait till you have dealt with the entire file, so you will now see that it's a pattern. But the 31st of May 2022 letter, if you can check it on the file, you will see 31st May 2022. You will see that one of the reasons probably is that people go for Juma prayers early in the morning. And so because of the nature or the circumstances in Banjul regarding, I think they would use the word, is it delinquent also, boys causing problems here and there. So they want to quickly set up the lights in Banjul. But what it appears to me is that you have a primary dealer that you want to deal with, and then so therefore you've already probably promised someone or identified a particular supplier, and so you just want to shorten the process so as to not give ample time to other suppliers, so that the one you intended to deal with would be qualified and then will meet all the requirements in a very short period of time. Because the more limited time you have, the more you are going to kind of exclude other potential suppliers in the to participate in any bidding process. Is that not the case?
Correct.
Do you see the letter?
Yes, I have.
Can you refer us to the letter regarding why
the letter dated 31st May 2022?
Yes.
Into the letter, we write to request for the shortening of the bid period to 15 days to allow the council.
Please speak louder. Please speak louder.
We write to request for the shortening of the bid period to 15 days to allow the council to speed up the procurement process.
Yes.
Event of the commencement of the rainy season.
Yes.
The risk of non-functioning street lights are mounting, which are aiming to mitigate.
Yes.
Which we are aiming to mitigate.
In addition to that, there is a letter wherein I think it probably will be on the one on the 23rd. So the issue of the non-functioning of the street lights, that is a non-starter, because you have a contract with a supplier. So basically, the goods supplied must fit the purpose, ideally, generally. So the subsequent reason that they gave, it was in relation to having solving the problem of, let's say, armed robbers in relation to people who are going for Juma prayers. I think it is in the subsequent letter. But my question now is, even with the first reason, do you think that is a justification when you're supposed to have a contract with any supplier? Do you think the advent of a rainy season will be a justification to kind of presume that some of the letters that may be submitted may not actually be fit for the purpose?
Actually, Consul, to be honest, the main reason for procurement planning, where procurement plans should guide institutions on their procurement activities to ensure that they are timely, there is enough bidding period, and so on and so forth. So if a justification like this is forwarded, I think the question is like, where is your procurement plan? Because these things should have been, the procurement plan should have guided all the procedures so that they are all implemented at the right time.
Exactly. So what is the risk attached? I will ask again. I understand that the chairperson already asked it, but I will ask again for clarity purposes. Why is it dangerous to continuously be applying to restrict or to limit the bidding period?
Actually, it comes to the same risk as I indicated before, corruption and other things, because the period may not be enough. But probably, we are not accusing, probably, some suppliers may have been informed and they started the process.
Exactly.
So that the other ones that were not informed initially will find the period very short for them and they will not be able to prepare adequately their bidding document and so on. So if the others are given full information, and they will, of course, and it may lead to corruption and other unfair treatment.
So will you not suggest that there be a proper mechanism in place at the level of the authority to scrutinize these kind of applications and decide whether of course there may be applications that may be genuine, but for the most part we have dealt with this with all of these files. We know for the most part the idea is to kind of depart from the rules and the regulations so as to a large extent benefit individuals. So don't you think there should be a proper mechanism to kind of address these issues, to determine which application is meritorious and which is not meritorious?
Council is a lesson well noted, and obviously we have to review ourselves. And
because this is why I'm saying that when you have a trend, when you have already a clue, if I am to, let's say, for example, decide whether a particular application is meritorious or not, you look at the trend of the application. If you look at the file you have, you will see that in the first instance, there was no intention to even conduct an open tender or any form of tendering or even deal with suppliers in the Gambia, for example. There was a specific supplier targeted already outside the country. And when approval was sought from your office for single sourcing to deal with that particular supplier through the mayor's connection, there was no justification for that. They didn't even provide any justification for outlining that particular supplier, apart from the fact that that company probably have the most suitable, and therefore they want to use the connection of both leaders to conduct single sourcing, but they do not meet the requirements. So now the file for this number 2 of 2022.
Before you move to the next file, let me just find out from Mr. Sanya. Please take a look at letter dated 25th of July 2022.
Letter dated
25th of July 2022.
Yes, from the authority?
Yes, from the authority.
Okay.
They have conveyed, they have replied to the letter dated the 15th of July from BCC.
Okay.
They conveyed approval for the change of dates, and they made, they listed it, and they asked that the council ensures that what they have listed, that is point 1 to point 4, that is abided by the council. Did you, by any chance, get a reply from the council that they have acted on these instructions?
Actually, normally, these things will be effected in the bidding document and with a covering letter.
Yes. That
However,
is why
I am seeing another document which I am not sure whether is the amended bidding document or not.
Can you see whether it is an amended? Because if it's an amended bidding document, it will reflect so. And together with the cover note, sending it to you to indicate that they have complied with what you have stated on this letter.
Yes, I wanted, but it's okay. I wanted to assign. I think this is a document which was, because the points raised here are not effective in the changes recommended here are not done in this order bidding document.
I should be clear, you have not seen any document that complied with what
exactly,
you have
the
stated
recommendations
on the letter dated 25th of July.
Exactly. Because the reasons are as follows. If you look at
it's just to abridge time. I just want to be clear in the file that what you instructed them to do pursuant to this project was not done in terms of reviewing the bidding document and complying with the provisions of the law.
Correct.
Because for each of these points, you are referring to the law.
Exactly, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. You may proceed to the next file.
We have the...
I think it's a convenient point to stop for a break before we start the next file. So we may rise, please, for a break.